My granddaughter Sophie leaned close and whispered words that froze my heart. Grandma, I heard Mommy and Daddy say they're sending you to a home today and taking all your money. I smiled and gently stroked her blonde hair, but inside, fury spread through my chest like a wildfire. Daniel and Laura had no idea what they had just unleashed. 18 months ago, my husband Robert died suddenly of a heart attack. Daniel and Laura swooped in right after, dripping with fake concern and crocodile tears. Mom, you can't live alone anymore, Daniel insisted. Come stay with us. We'll take care of you. What they really meant was come be our live-in. Nanny and our personal ATM. Sophie's innocent confession that morning changed everything. While she sat at the kitchen table coloring, I quietly picked up the phone. The first call was to my lawyer. Michael Turner, it's Eleanor Hayes. I need to see you today. Can we meet at 2? He hesitated, then asked, Eleanor, is everything all right? I replied, let's just say some chickens are about to come home to roost. The next call was to my bank. This is Eleanor Hayes, account number 47,789. I need to discuss an immediate transfer. The representative confirmed what I already knew thanks to Robert's insurance and our savings. I had far more money than Daniel and Laura realized. I looked at Sophie, still coloring, completely unaware she had just saved her grandmother from being robbed blind. I ruffled her hair. Sophie, sweetheart, how would you like to help Grandma with a very special project? Her big blue eyes lit up. What kind of project? The kind that teaches people not to count their chickens before they hatch. At exactly 1:30, I told her we were going for a walk. I grabbed my purse, the one with all my important documents I had carried everywhere since Robert's death. Widow's intuition had told me this day might come. We walked to the corner coffee shop where Michael was waiting. His face was grim as I explained everything. They think I'm some helpless old woman they can dispose of, but they're about to learn otherwise. Michael nodded. What do you want to do? Everything, I told him firmly. A new will, revoke the power of attorney, transfer. The accounts, all of it, and I want it done before they return from their errands. As we headed toward his office, Sophie skipped beside me, humming, unaware she was about to witness the most spectacular takedown in Hayes. Family history. Sitting in Michael's office while Sophie played with toys in the waiting area, I realized how blind I had been. The signs were there from the beginning, but grief makes you foolish. After Robert's funeral, when Daniel suggested I sell my house and move in with them, I thought it was love. The market's hot right now, Mom. He said, you could get top dollar and we'd love having you close. What he didn't say was that my Social Security check would help with their mortgage and that free babysitting would save them hundreds every month. I sold my beautiful 3-bedroom home, the one Robert and I had shared for 32 years, and I handed over the proceeds to help them pay off debts. $600,000 vanished in one transaction. I should have seen it then, I told Michael as he drew up the paperwork. The way Laura's eyes lit up when she heard the sale. Price, the sudden friendliness after years of barely tolerating me. The past 18 months had been a masterclass in manipulation. Every time I mentioned getting my own apartment, Daniel would guilt me. Mom, Sophie needs you. You're so good with her. Besides, at your age, wouldn't you rather be with family? At my age, I was 67, not 97. I could drive, cook, and think, and apparently plan revenge better than they could plan their schemes. Laura had been more subtle, but just as calculating. Eleanor, your experience with children is invaluable. Sophie is doing so well in school. It's definitely because of your help with homework. Translation. Keep doing unpaid labor. While we enjoy nights out 3 times a week, the worst part was how they had isolated me from my friends. You're so busy with Sophie, we didn't think you'd want to join book club anymore. The church ladies called, but we told them you weren't up to visitors. Slowly and deliberately, they cut me off from my support system, but they made one crucial mistake. They underestimated me. Michael slid the documents across his desk. This revokes their power of attorney and names me as your designated agent. This transfers your accounts to a new bank they don't know about. And this is your new will. I signed each page with a steady hand. What about the house money I gave them? I asked. That gets interesting, Michael replied. Since there's no formal loan agreement, we can argue it was a conditional gift contingent on you living there permanently. If they breach that agreement, they have to pay it back. Every penny plus interest. I checked my watch. 2:45. They would be home by 4, expecting to find their compliant mother ready to be shipped off to Willow Creek residence. Instead, they would find a woman who had just reclaimed her power. Sophie ran into the office. Grandma, are we done with the boring grown-up stuff? Almost, sweetheart. Just one more stop. Our final stop was Union Trust Bank, where I had done business for 40 years. Sophie sat in the children's area with a lollipop while I met with Janet, the branch manager. Mrs. Hayes, this is highly irregular. You want to transfer everything today? All of it? Everything, I confirmed. Checking, savings, CDs. All of it moved to the new account at Horizon Bank across town. That's a substantial amount. Are you sure about this? Janet asked carefully. I thought about Daniel's face that morning, avoiding my eyes when he said they were running errands. I thought about Laura hugging me a little too tightly, as though she were saying goodbye. I thought about how they had asked me to stay with Sophie instead of coming along, breaking their usual routine. I've never been more certain of anything in my life. By 3:30, Sophie and I were back home. I sent her to her room, too. Plate and tied on my apron. If this was going to be my last meal in that house, I wanted it to be memorable. Pot roast with mashed potatoes, their favorite. And while I chopped and stirred, I thought about the conversation they had probably had that morning. The appointment at Willow Creek was at 5. Daniel would have said, we'll tell her after dinner. By tomorrow, she'd be settled in her new place, and we can start the paperwork for power of attorney. They probably had already planned how to spend my money. Laura had been eyeing a new SUV. Daniel had been talking about renovating the kitchen. And of course, there was that European vacation they thought they could finally afford. I smiled to myself as the aroma of the roast filled the kitchen. They had no idea that while they were plotting my downfall, I was already 2 steps ahead. At 3:45, I heard their car pull into the driveway. I smoothed my apron and checked my reflection in the kitchen window. I looked like a harmless grandmother preparing dinner for her loving family. Perfect. The front door opened and their voices carried through the hall. Unusually cheerful and loud. They were overcompensating, probably weighed down by guilt. Mom, we're home. Daniel called. Something smells amazing, he added. Just making your favorite, I answered warmly. Sophie's in her room. How were your errands? There was a pause before Laura replied, fine, just running around town. I hid my smile. They had no idea that while they were running errands, plotting my future, I was already rewriting it. Dinner became a masterpiece of subtle theater. I served their plates with extra care, asked about their day, and even complimented Lavra on her new haircut. They squirmed like guilty children, exchanging nervous glances whenever they thought I wasn't looking. This roast is incredible. Mom, Daniel said, though he barely touched his food. You really outdid yourself. I wanted tonight to be special, I told them with a smile. You never know when things might change. Lavra nearly choked on her mashed potatoes. Change? What do you mean? Oh, just life in general, I said sweetly. Nothing stays the same forever, does it? The tension was so thick it felt like the air could snap in two, but Sophie, blissfully unaware, chattered about school and her drawings, filling the silence with her innocence. When 7 o'clock came, Daniel cleared his throat. Mom, could we talk to you in the living room? Sophie, go play in your room for a bit. Here it comes, I thought. The moment they had been rehearsing all day, we settled in the living room, them on the couch, me in my favorite chair by the window. Daniel fidgeted with his hands while Laura stared at the coffee table. Finally, Daniel spoke. Mom, Laura and I have been talking, and we think it might be time for you to consider other living arrangements. I tilted my head and asked with feigned confusion, other arrangements? You mean like getting my own apartment? Not exactly, Laura jumped in with artificial sweetness. We were thinking more along lines of assisted living, somewhere with people your own age, activities, medical staff on hand. You mean a nursing home? I asked calmly. It's not a nursing home, Daniel said quickly. It's a lovely community. We visited today. Willow Creek. They have a beautiful facility and great programs. You've already made arrangements, haven't you? I asked, watching them squirm. They exchanged another glance. We thought we'd explore options, Daniel muttered. I leaned back in my chair, letting silence fill the room. They expected. Tears, protests, maybe begging. Instead, I smiled. Well, that's interesting timing. Laura's voice sharpened. What do you mean? I mean, I spent today exploring options too. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to Michael's contact. Michael, it's Eleanor. Could you come over now? Yes, I think it's time. Daniel's face went pale. Mom, what are you doing? Taking care of business, sweetheart. Just like you taught me. I stood up and smoothed my skirt. Michael Turner will be here in 10 minutes to explain some changes I made today. You might want to sit down. Laura grabbed Daniel's arm, whispering frantically. But before they could ask more questions, the doorbell rang. Right on schedule. I opened the door to find Michael standing there with his briefcase and a steady, serious expression. Good evening, Eleanor, Daniel, Laura. Come in, Michael, I said cheerfully. Why don't you explain to my son and daughter-in-law what we accomplished today? He settled into the armchair across from them. They looked like they were facing a firing squad, their faces pale and stiff. Sophie had thankfully fallen asleep upstairs, spared from the storm that was about to break. Where should I begin? Michael asked. The power of attorney seems like a good place, I suggested. Michael nodded. As of today, Daniel and Laura Hayes no longer have any legal authority over Eleanor Hayes' affairs. The power of attorney they were planning to use has been formally revoked. Daniel shot to his feet. Planning to use? We weren't planning anything. Sit down, son, I said quietly. We both know that's a lie. Laura's face turned white. Eleanor, I don't understand. Why would you do this? Because 8-year-olds have better hearing than you think, I said, locking eyes with her. Sophie told me about your conversation this morning, about putting me in a home and taking my money. Silence filled the room. Daniel sank back down onto the couch, his face tight with panic. Laura's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Michael, would you explain the financial arrangements? I asked calmly. Certainly, he said. Mrs. Hayes has transferred all her assets to new accounts at a different bank. This includes approximately $637,000 in life savings, insurance proceeds, and the money from selling her home. Laura finally found her voice. You can't do this. That money, you gave us that money. Actually, Michael replied evenly. I reviewed the situation. There was no formal loan agreement. The money was provided under the understanding that Eleanor would live here permanently. If that arrangement is terminated, she has the right to request repayment. With interest, I added. Daniel dragged a hand through his hair. Mom, please, let's talk about this reasonably. You don't understand what you're doing. Oh, But I do, I said, standing tall, feeling stronger than I had in years. I understand you were planning to have me declared incompetent so you could control my finances. I understand you've been isolating me from friends, treating me like unpaid help, and counting money that was never yours to begin with. We were trying to protect you. Daniel's voice rose. You're 67. Living on your own isn't safe. I'm not living on my own, I said firmly. I've been living with people who see me as a burden on bank account. There's a difference. Lara leaned forward, desperate. Eleanor, we can work this out. Maybe we approach this the wrong way, but we do care about you. I laughed, a sound sharp and cold. You care about my social security check. You care about free babysitting. You care about my money. But you don't care about me. Michael cleared his throat. There's one more matter we need to discuss. Ah, yes, I said, smiling like a wolf. The best part. He opened another folder. Eleanor has also updated her will. The previous version left her estate to Daniel, with provisions for Sophie's education. The new version makes some significant changes. Daniel's face drained of color. What kind of changes? I delivered the blow myself, the kind where Sophie gets everything, held in trust until she's 25. You and Lavra get nothing. Not a single penny, Lavra gasped. You can't do this. We have a mortgage, car payments, Sophie's future to think about. You should have thought about that before you decided to rob me blind, I said, done with pretending. Did you really think I wouldn't figure out your plan? Willow Creek costs $4,000 a month. You had it all calculated, didn't you? Put me away, sell my belongings, control my money, and pocket the rest. Daniel tried again, his voice shaking. Mom, I'm your son, your only child. Dad would want you to take care of me. That was his mistake. Bringing Robert into this. Your father worked 2 jobs for 30 years so we could save every penny for retirement. He sacrificed so we could build something to leave you. And you were planning to steal it while I'm still alive? I walked over to the mantelpiece, picked up Robert's photo, and looked at his kind face. You know what your father would say if he could see you now? He'd say, I should have done this sooner. I set the photo down and turned back to them. Michael, there's one more document, isn't there? Michael nodded gravely. Yes, the eviction notice. Eleanor has decided she no longer feels safe living here. As tenants without a lease, you have 30 days to find other arrangements. Daniel's voice cracked. Eviction notice? This is our house. Actually, I said, pulling out my own folder, that's where things get interesting. Remember the $600,000 I gave you? I have all the records showing the transfer from my account to yours, specifically to pay off your mortgage and debts. No loan documents were signed, but I have emails where you promised I'd always have a home here. Laura's face collapsed in shock. You want the money back? Every single penny, I said coldly, plus the 18 months of rent. You should have been paying me the money you saved on babysitting, compensation for emotional distress. I calculate that to about $700,000. Daniel whispered, we don't have that kind of money. Then you'll have to get creative, I said. Sell the house. Liquidate your retirement, get second jobs, or declare bankruptcy. Either way, you won't be doing it on my dime anymore. Michael snapped his briefcase shut. I'll leave you to process this. Eleanor, your new apartment is ready whenever you want to move in. As he headed to the door, Laura called out desperately, what about Sophie? You can't abandon your granddaughter. I paused at the bottom of the stairs and looked back. I'm not abandoning Sophie. I'm teaching her a valuable lesson about what happens when you try to cheat the people who love you. She understands someday. I climbed the stairs to pack my things, leaving Daniel and Laura to choke on the ruins of their perfect plan. Tonight, I would sleep better than I had in months. 3 weeks later, I was sipping coffee in my new apartment overlooking Maplewood Park, watching joggers and dog walkers enjoy the sunshine. The two-bedroom furnished rental cost me $1,800 a month, a fraction of what I had been spending under Daniel and Laura's roof. For the first time in a long while, I felt peace. My phone rang. Daniel's name flashed on the screen for the 14th time that week. I let it go to voicemail, same as the other 13 calls. His voice played out desperate and shaky. "Mom, please call me back. We need to talk. This has gone too far. Sophie's asking where you went, and Laura's having panic attacks. We can work this out if you'll just be reasonable." Reasonable. That was rich coming from a man who had plotted to strip me of my freedom. I deleted the message and called Michael instead. "How's our lawsuit coming along?" I asked. "Slowly," he replied. "They hired Martin Burke from Burke and Associates. He's arguing that the money you gave them was a gift, not a loan. He claims you can't retroactively demand repayment." "And what did you tell him?" "That we have 18 months of documented evidence showing they treated you as a tenant, not family. Bank records, emails, even grocery receipts you paid. 4. The pattern of financial abuse is clear." I smiled. "Good. What else?" Burke had filed a motion claiming I was not mentally competent to manage my finances. They wanted a psychological evaluation. My smile faded. Even after all this, Daniel was still trying to have me declared incompetent. Michael's tone was cautious. "It's a desperate move. They know they're losing, but there's something else. They've been asking about Robert's insurance. Policy specifically, whether you knew all the beneficiaries." A cold weight settled in my stomach. "What do you mean, all the beneficiaries?" "I'm not sure yet," Michael admitted. "But Burke hinted at irregularities in the payout." "I'll look into it." After I hung up, unease gnawed at me. Robert had always handled our insurance and investments. I trusted him completely, signing whatever papers he placed in front of me. What if Daniel knew something I didn't? That afternoon, I drove to Sophie's school. I parked across the street and waited until I saw her walking toward the playground. She looked smaller than I remembered, sadder. When she spotted me, her face lit up like Christmas morning. She ran to me and wrapped me in the fiercest hug. "Grandma, I missed you so much. Why did you leave?" My heart ached. I had to, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, and other grown-ups have to protect themselves. "Are you coming home?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I can't, Sophie, but maybe you can visit me sometime. My new apartment has a pool." Her eyes widened. "Really? Really? Ask your parents if you can come this weekend." "I'd love to have you." I hugged her tight. "I love you, baby girl. Don't ever forget that." As I drove away, I saw Laura's car pulling into the school lot. She must have seen us together because my phone began ringing immediately. I didn't answer. The psychological evaluation was set for Friday. I arrived early, dressed in a navy suit with pearl earrings. I wanted no doubts about my competence. Dr. Patricia Coleman greeted me kindly. "Mrs. Hayes, I know this evaluation was requested by your son's attorney, but I'm independent. I'm here to assess your mental state, not to take sides." "I appreciate that," I told her. For 2 hours, she tested my memory, reasoning, and decision-making. I answered every question honestly, explaining my choices clearly. At the end, she said, "You seem to have excellent recall and strong analytical skills. Tell me about your relationship with your son and daughter-in-law." "They're struggling financially," I explained. "And I believe they saw me as a solution rather than as a person with my own needs." "Do you think your actions might be considered extreme by some people?" she asked. I looked her in the eye. "If someone planned to steal your life savings and force you into a home against your will, what would you consider an appropriate response?" She made a note. "Point taken. That evening, Michael called. The evaluation went well. She's recommending no conservatorship. But Eleanor, we have a problem. I found out what Burke was hinting about. My stomach dropped. Tell me. Robert had a second life insurance policy, $2 million. He purchased it 5 years before he died. And you weren't the only beneficiary. Half went to someone named Clara Benson. The name hit me like a punch. Clara Benson, Robert's secretary. The pretty blonde who always stood too close at company picnics. Michael's voice was careful. She got $1 million. You should have received $1 million too, but you only ever got $500,000. That's what has Burke interested. If Clara got her full share, where's the other $500,000 that belonged to you? The pieces, snapped together with cruel clarity. Daniel had handled Robert's insurance paperwork after the funeral. He told me the policy was only worth $500,000 after taxes. In my grief, I had believed him that my own son had stolen $500,000 from me. I sat frozen. The phone pressed to my ear, Michael's words echoing in my mind. My husband had betrayed me by leaving money to another woman, and my son had betrayed me by stealing $500,000 from me when I was at my weakest. The two men I trusted most had both carved wounds in my life, but instead of despair, a sharper, colder emotion rose in me, pure rage. Michael, I said. Quietly, I want to destroy him. That weekend, I sat at my kitchen table with papers spread out, planning my next move. If Daniel thought he could bury me under lies, he was about to learn I had claws of my own. I started by calling Clara Benson. The internet told me she was now Clara Benson Hayes, living in Atlanta with an orthodontist husband and 2 teenage daughters. I dialed the number with steady hands. Hello? A woman answered. Hello, Clara. This is Eleanor Hayes, Robert's wife. The silence stretched. So long I thought she'd hung up. Finally she spoke. Oh my God, Eleanor, I wasn't expecting. How did you get this number? I'm resourceful when I need to be, I said calmly. We need to talk about Robert's insurance policy. I don't know what you mean, she stammered. Clara, I know about the $2 million policy. I know you received half. What I want to know is what you know about my half. Another pause. Your son told me you'd already received it. My pulse quickened. My son told you? When exactly did you speak to Daniel? He called me after Robert died. He told me you were struggling with grief and that he was handling your finances. Temporarily. He said the insurance company had made an error and sent 2 checks instead of 1, and that I should cash mine and not worry. The audacity left me breathless. Daniel had not only stolen from me, but had convinced Robert's mistress to help cover it up. Clara, that check you received was supposed to be split. Robert left us each $500,000, not $1 million each. That's not what Daniel said, she whispered. He even showed me paperwork. Forged paperwork, I snapped. Clara, he played us both. The only question is, what are we going to do about it? By Tuesday morning, I was waiting in the lobby of Daniel's office. His face went white when he saw me sitting there. Mom, what are you doing here? Good morning, Daniel, I said smoothly. Lovely day, isn't it? I thought we could have lunch. I'm really busy. Oh, I insist. I already made us a reservation at Giovanni's. You remember Giovanni's, don't you? The place where you took me to celebrate your promotion. Last year? His jaw tightened, but he nodded. Fine, but I can't stay long. Giovanni's was crowded, the hum of conversation providing cover. We ordered, exchanged small talk about Sophie, and waited until the food arrived. Then I leaned forward, smiling sweetly. I had the most interesting conversation with Clara. Benson yesterday. Daniel's fork clattered against his plate. His face drained of color. She told me everything, I continued, about how you convinced her that the insurance company made a mistake. About how you said she deserved the full million. About how you kept my $500,000 for yourself. I was protecting you, he hissed, keeping his voice low. You were devastated after Dad died. Finding out about Clara would have destroyed you. So you decided to profit from my ignorance? I asked. It wasn't like that, he said desperately. I used the money to pay off our house, to secure Sophie's future. You would have just left it in savings? I laughed, a sound sharp enough to make diners glance our way. You stole $500,000 from your grieving mother and convinced yourself it was charity. The arrogance is breathtaking. Daniel leaned closer. Mom, please, let me explain. Dad left Clara that money because she was pregnant. The world tilted. What? She was pregnant with Dad's baby. She lost it in the 4th month, but he had already changed his beneficiary to provide for the child. He was going to change it back, but then he had the heart attack. I knew about it. Clara showed me the medical records. She was devastated, and I convinced her she deserved the full million, and I used your share to pay our debt so you wouldn't have to worry. I stared at him, my stomach turning to ice. Robert hadn't just betrayed me with an affair. He had gotten another woman pregnant, and Daniel had known all along. And instead of telling me the truth, I said slowly, you decided to steal from both of us? He opened his mouth to argue, but his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and went pale. It's Lara. She says Michael Turner is at the house with papers. I smiled. Ah, yes. That'll be the criminal charges. I filed them this morning. Fraud, elder abuse, theft by deception. Michael was quite thorough. Daniel's hands shook. Mom, please think about Sophie. If I go to jail, you should have thought about Sophie before you decided to become a criminal, I said coldly. Don't worry about her. She'd be well provided for. In fact, she'd be getting quite a bit more than you planned. What do you mean? I leaned down and whispered in his ear. Clara is giving me back the money that rightfully belongs to me. All of it. Turns out she isn't as comfortable with theft as you are. His face crumpled. You can't do this to me. I'm your son. You're right. You are my son. And that makes this so much worse. I stood, left money for my meal, and walked out, leaving him to choke on his lies. The next morning, I sat in my apartment with coffee in hand, watching the news coverage of his arrest. Local insurance agent, charged with elder abuse and fraud, the anchor reported. Daniel Hayes allegedly stole over $500,000 from his mother while planning to have her declared mentally incompetent. My phone buzzed endlessly with reporters, neighbors, and friends. I ignored them all except one call. Grandma? Sophie's voice was small. Mommy's crying, and she won't tell me why Daddy isn't coming home. My heart ached. I'll be right there, sweetheart. I found Sophie at her friend's house, where Lara had dropped her off before heading to the jail to see Daniel. The little girl clutched her stuffed rabbit, her eyes wide with fear. Grandma, are you in trouble too? She whispered. I knelt down, taking her hands in mine. No, sweetheart, I'm not in trouble. Sometimes grown-ups make very bad choices, and they have to face the consequences. Is Daddy a bad person? She asked, her lip trembling. Your daddy isn't bad, Sophie, I said softly. But he did bad things, and now he has to make them right. Over the next few hours, I explained everything in words an 8-year-old could understand. I told her that people who love each other should be honest and kind, that taking what doesn't belong to you is always wrong, and that sometimes protecting someone means making very hard choices. She looked up at me with tearful eyes. Are you still mad at Daddy? I thought carefully before answering. I'm disappointed in your daddy, and I'm sad that he hurt me. But I will always love him because he gave me you. That evening, Wadra came to collect her daughter. She looked drained, her eyes red from crying. The lawyers say he might get 5 years if he's convicted, she said bitterly. That's up to the judge now, I replied. Laura's tone softened, almost pleading. Eleanor, please. I know we hurt you, but Daniel's scared and confused. Can't you find it in your heart to forgive him? I looked at the woman who had smiled at me while secretly planning to strip me of my freedom. A year ago, her guilt would have broken me, but now I was stronger. Laura, I forgave Daniel the moment I filed those charges. Forgiveness doesn't mean ignoring consequences. It means I won't let his choices poison my future. 3 months later, Daniel pled guilty to avoid a trial. He was sentenced to 18 months in minimum security prison and 5 years probation. The judge ordered full restitution, $700,000 plus interest and fees. Laura had to sell their house and move into a small apartment. She found a job at a dental office to support herself, and Sophie thought it wasn't easy for her. But she was learning to stand on her own for the first time. Sophie came to visit me every weekend. We swam in the apartment pool, baked cookies, and worked on her homework together. She was resilient, the way children are, and she was learning lessons about honesty, consequences, and the difference between love and manipulation. As for me, I enrolled in community art classes, joined a book club, and volunteered at the animal shelter. At 67, I was finally living the life I wanted instead of the life others expected of me. Robert's betrayal still stung some nights when I was alone with my thoughts. But I had learned something important. Being hurt doesn't make you weak, and being kind doesn't make you blind. The day Daniel was released from prison, my phone rang. His name lit up the screen. For a long moment, I just stared at it, debating whether to answer. Finally, I pressed accept. Mom, it's me. His voice was shaky, stripped of its old arrogance. I know I don't deserve it, but could we try to start over? I walked to the window of my apartment and looked out at Maplewood Park. Children were playing on the swings. Couples walked hand in hand. Joggers moved steadily along the path. The world was full of possibilities, and I had almost let them slip away because I thought I had no choice. Yes, I said finally, my voice steady. But this time, Daniel, it will be on my terms. There was silence on the other end, then a quiet sigh of relief. Thank you, Mom. When I ended the call, I felt a strange mix of emotions, relief, sadness, and strength. Some stories end with reconciliation. Some end with justice. Mine had ended with both. I had faced betrayal from my husband and my son, and I had survived. I had been pushed to the edge, but I had chosen to fight back. I had protected my granddaughter's future and reclaimed my own life. At 67 years old, I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living, and this time, I was doing it on my own terms. In the weeks that followed Daniel's release, life settled into a new rhythm. Sophie continued to spend weekends with me, splashing in the pool, baking cookies, and curling up with me. For bedtime stories, she asked hard questions sometimes, questions no 8-year-old should have to ask. Grandma, why do grown-ups lie? I told her the truth. Because sometimes people are afraid or greedy, or they think lying will get them what they want. But lies always catch up with you. She nodded thoughtfully, as if storing away the lesson. Each day with her reminded me why I had fought so hard. Not for money, not for revenge, but for her, so she would learn that strength and dignity were worth protecting. Laura had moved on to a modest apartment and a steady job. She no longer looked at me with contempt, but with something closer to respect. She was learning what it meant to stand on her own 2 feet. As for Daniel, prison had stripped him of his arrogance. He served his time, paid back what he owed, and carried the weight of restitution like a stone tied to his ankle. But perhaps, just perhaps, he had begun to understand the damage he had caused. I had changed too. I was no longer the woman who once allowed herself to be manipulated into selling her home and surrendering her independence. I was stronger. I filled my days with art classes, book clubs, and volunteer work at the animal shelter. I rediscovered the joy of living for myself. Robert's betrayal still lingered at the edges of my thoughts. Late at night, when silence filled my apartment, the sting of his secrets returned. But instead of breaking me, the pain became a reminder of what I had overcome. Being hurt had not made me weak. It had made me wise. One evening, as Sophie sat beside me coloring in her notebook, she looked up and said, "Grandma, I think you're the strongest person I know." I smiled, my heart full. "Maybe, Sophie, but you'll be stronger one day, because you'll know the difference between love and manipulation, and you'll never let anyone take away your power." And in that moment, I knew my story was not just about betrayal or revenge. It was about survival, about justice, and about new beginnings. At 67, I wasn't finished. I was just getting started.